I always love kind of going way back to talk about where your love of country music kind of came from and stemmed from, and then ultimately landed you where you're at now. But what was the first country song that really made you go, wow? Do you remember that?
Well, okay. If we go all the way back, I mean, I remember my earliest memory of like the first country song that made me go wow is probably in my mom's like 1998 white Chevrolet Suburban with like the blue carpet interior. We had a Pull My Chain Toby Keith CD, and my brothers and I was one of three boys. I'm the middle child, and we would always request to hear "I Want to Talk About Me." Like that was like, but that was like one of my like first memories of country music. But maybe the first song that made me like stirred up inside and was like, "What is this?" was probably "Springsteen" by Eric Church. I just remember hearing that and just something inside of me. Now I have the words, I can put it to words that it was probably my love of country music and wanting to do this one day. But I didn't know how to play guitar at that point. Like I was very young, but it kind of moved me. It was like, what is this?
I love it. So I know you grew up in the South, and I'm assuming country music was kind of all that was around. But what initially drew you into the genre when you became old enough to be in charge of the radio or the CDs?
I think it was Texas country music, the
Yeah.
subgenre. I went to Texas A&M University, and I really didn't know about that subgenre. You had like the Eli Young bands who were kind of Nashville, but also started in Texas. But I didn't know that there was this like thriving scene in Texas. And Flatland Cavalry was my first exposure to that, which you would think it would be one of some of the older, like Robert Earl
Stony or
Keen.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I eventually went down all those rabbit holes. But Flatland was the first exposure to that. And that's when I really was like, who kept this from me? Where has this been my whole life? And that's really when things started to shift of like, before that, I never thought, oh, I want to do this one day, or I want to, but then I started finding out about these heartbreak songs, and they were true to what had happened in the writer's life. And I was like, I'm in. And I didn't know what that even meant, but I just fell in love with it. And then the rest is history, to be honest.
Oh my gosh. So did you finish at A&M? I mean,
Yes, I
I
have a
have a little beef
degree.
with you because we're big TCU fans in our house, but you know what I mean? I'll keep talking to you.
We don't even, I feel like we don't even have a rivalry with
Yeah, I
TCU.
know. At least
uh,
you're not Baylor, right? Then I
right,
don't know if we
right.
could do this interview. But
Absolutely.
you said you graduated, but when did the wheels start turning that, you know what, maybe this is something that I want to do
Right.
full time? When did that
It was
songwriting come?
between sophomore and junior year of college. I don't know if you know a lot of the traditions of Texas A&M, or we don't have any cheerleaders at A&M. We only have what are called yell leaders. We only have five of them. So I was a yell leader at A&M. It's a very prestigious position. It's kind of, you have to get elected to serve as a yell leader, and there's only five of us. There's five out of, now it's like 70,000 students, I think. And so we did like over 300 events a year. But anyways, I had just gotten elected as a yell leader at A&M, and M,
Yeah.
and I could talk about that for a long time. But you have to search it up. Trust me, it's not a cheerleader. There's a difference. It's a yell leader. And anyways, I had just been elected to serve as a yell leader, and we spent our whole summer time in College Station doing events for the university. We did over 300 events a year. And my friend and I, we would always go out to the dance hall in town on Thursdays. He kind of made me. He's like, "Hey, we're gonna be here all summer. We're gonna go to the dance hall. It's called Hurricane Harry's."
Oh my
And so
gosh. Okay, I've heard that.
every Thursday night we're dancing at Hurricane Harry's, and again, I'm just so saturated in the music that I kind of get inspired, and I write like pretty much my first real song. Like I had tried to write songs before, but this one kind of sat down, wrote it out. It's called California Cowgirl. It's actually on Spotify. It's out. And so that was the song I wrote about my time at Hurricane Harry's, and that really is what started it for me, because I ended up getting to meet Cleto Cordero that summer, and I hadn't even finished the song at that point, but I sang him a piece of it, and he told me, "Hey, that's pretty good. You should keep writing." And then I just kept writing and writing and writing and writing, and then with COVID shutting everything down, I had time to get into a studio, and then that's really what started it for me, was just being around it so much.
I love it. Yeah, Cleto's such a great guy. I mean, I've gotten to see him and meet him a handful of times, but the thing that stuck out to me about him is when we saw him here in Chicago, he stayed and signed every autograph and met with every single person. So I love that you got that time with him as well. But I want to talk with you about your music. How do you kind of balance staying true to the roots of this Texas country with kind of adding in your own flair?
Yeah, it's a fine line to walk for sure. And especially because I've been writing a lot in Nashville recently. And I think the thing, let's just keep talking on the Cleto thing, because he really is a role model and mentor to me. But he always told me, if you don't have anything to say, don't say it. And so that's kind of, I think that's Texas country. And that is, even if one day I branch out and become more of the national kind of country music, it still will, like, you take the boy out of Texas, you can't take Texas out of the boy kind of thing. Like that is what Texas country music is. It's just, it's unique to the person who's behind the microphone. And
No.
I don't think I'll ever compromise on what I believe in, or sing a song that doesn't mean something to me, because there's some songs on this record that I just put out called Good Again Amen, and there's a song called I Got You, and I love the second verse talks about, like my wife, or the girl in the song, gets a pawn shop diamond. Well, I can guarantee you my wife's ring isn't a pawn shop diamond. It's, I spent a lot of money on that ring. But I've learned that, like, that was the first moment I've learned that, okay, there's a little bit of truth in every lie, as what they say, or a kernel of truth. It's okay. Well, this might mean more to someone else in the crowd who did buy that pawn shop diamond, and I can sacrifice that, but still, like, the first part of the song is, like, the first verse is 100% true. Everything about that's 100%. So it's just this fine line you walk of learning when to make those compromises, but not compromising your true, like, who you are. You know what I'm saying?
No, 100%. And I love the new album and I love that you bring it up. What a perfect transition. I love when that happens, but it's been getting a lot of attention and a lot of spins in my household. So, yay.
Wow. Well, thank
Um,
you for that.
but what inspired some of these stories on the project? I feel a lot of them are wise beyond your years, but they're very good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Some people have said that to me before too, and I think, I going back to when I started songwriting. I started only 5 years ago, but I've always, or 2019 was when I really wrote that first song. But I've always, with my faith and kind of my, well, I almost was an introvert for a little bit there. My wife would tell me I'm lying. She's like, "You're very extroverted," but I do get my energy from being alone and process my thoughts that way. So I've always put pen to paper, and I think where those deeper songs come from, that's been a continuation of me since I was 14 years old, learning how to put my thoughts on a piece of paper. And so I think that's where some of those deeper songs come from, is from my faith, and from me trying to figure out when I'm in a hard moment, and then just putting music to it. And then other ones are just from living. And I don't know if you've kept up with my Instagram, or have seen that this album is this weird, it's called a chiasm, which means that you could fold it in half, and every song kind of mirrors the song opposite of it.
Mhm.
And so that's again, from that's the Old Testament way of telling stories. It's in some, like, stories like the Iliad and the Odyssey or whatever, but just me being that, introspective person, I just tried to do my best to put this together in a way that would challenge you as the listener to really dive into it, because there's a lot to it, if you really dive into it.
I love it. I know. And I'm such a nerd. And I noticed that when I first listened, it took me, like, I'll be honest, maybe 5 or 6 full listens to finally be like, wait, hold on, there's something going on here. So, what was the creative decision about that? Like, with your team, maybe with your wife, why ultimately did you think that that was perfect for this album?
I was on a Southwest flight, 30,000 feet above, I'm always thinking about the next project, the
Yeah.
next, which might be a detriment to me living in the present moment.
Me too.
But I'm always, I mean, the other day I was thinking about, the next record, like, after Good Again Amen. Like, I've got 25 songs that I'm toying with, and I want to get to, like, 40, but I'm always thinking about order and track list, and flashback 2 years ago when I'm thinking about order and track list for Good Again Amen. I just kind of started playing with it, and I had these 3 songs that were very kind of slower and had similar messages to them. That was The Joy of Life, Everything Will Always Change, and For What It's Worth. and I put them together, and I'd been listening to a podcast of a church in Alabama. It's called what is it called? Come on, Auburn Community Church, and they were talking about this concept of chiasm, and it kind of just clicked like a light bulb moment for me. And I'd never heard of anyone doing a project like that, and I was like, yeah, that's it. It was just kind of a light bulb aha moment for me. So it wasn't a team. I think my team thinks I'm probably crazy because I brought the idea to the table, and they're like, what? What is this? What is a chiasm? Can you, like, they literally like, can you please explain this to
Can
us?
you
Like,
use
type
it in
of
a sentence? Yeah.
right, exactly. So I think they were very, they were receptive to it, but they had never heard of someone doing that. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened. It was a aha moment, and thankful for Southwest flights. I never buy the Wi-Fi because it's kind of a moment to unplug from the world. And I'm usually not the movie watcher either. I kind
Yeah.
of just pull out my pen and paper and dream, and yeah, I'm very thankful for the way this came together.
I love it. So I want to talk to you. You mentioned CDs, specifically, the Toby Keith CD. I'm pretty sure I still have that somewhere in the house. But I want to talk to you about like digital platforms, and with the rise of digital platforms and big things about streaming numbers and whatever. Do you feel like technology has influenced you on how you write or how you connect with your fans? Or do you just not give a crap and you're just going to kind of do you?
No, I definitely give a crap.
Yeah.
Maybe too much, maybe
Yeah.
one too many craps. I mean, it's available, and it's what people are on. So you
Yeah.
have to play the game, and that's kind of what I did with this. It influenced the way I released this project.
Mm,
Yes, it's an album, but I didn't release The Joy of Life first.
yeah.
I had to play the single game, and I think that's what the social media and technology, it's people that so instant gratification, it's what's next. So it's influencing me even right now today. It's like, all right, well, we got to get back in the studio because we're gonna lose attention. And that's, I have to remind myself that that there's a bigger plan in play, and that it's not all up to me to figure it out. But with technology, it feels like it is. It feels like, oh man, I gotta try to keep up with this machine of what's next. And when really I need to let this album live for a second, and go on the road and play it, and keep living. But it's easy to just kind of dive into that. Oh gosh, I gotta keep putting this out, and keep, because people are so, it's just so, scrolling. It's like every five, they say you have to catch people in 3 seconds. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, yeah, right. I know, but I mean, I get it, but I love that you're able to, I mean, it's hard for me too, what I mean, to slow down and just kind of live in the moment. But I want to talk to you about your live performance. The energy that you give off when you perform is so unique and so fun. So, first of all, how do you prepare for a live show, and what do you hope your audience takes away from when they see you?
Heck yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much. That's something I pride myself in. And how do I prepare for a live show? I guess we can flash back to what kind of sparked this kind of energy on stage, because I feel like I step in. It's still Keller, but it's just this bigger version of
Elevated. Yeah.
myself. Yeah, elevated. And I worked at a summer camp in Hot Springs, Arkansas. It was called Brick Hill Ranch. And we used to have these moments at after lunch to like have a full, like the counselors would play like a full band kind of show. And it was really to get the kids kind of their food like digested, and they're not just going out in the sun to play and stuff right after. And I remember when we were practicing as our staff training, and our camp director, his name was David Pate, and he was like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know." He pulled me aside. He's like, "Your stage presence kind of sucks." Like literally, literally. And it was for camp. I wasn't even thinking about doing music at that point.
Yeah.
But it was my first lesson of like, you have to totally,
You're
when you're on stage, you have to
listening
be
to
bigger,
All
than you are not on stage. And then if you think it's too big,
Country
be like a step above that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's when I really started learning to just like be like crazy. And I had long hair down to my shoulders, and maybe that'll make a comeback one day. But
Mhm.
that, like, now flash forward though, I approach the stage the same way. And I think that has helped my live show, because that's what people want to have fun. They've had a long work week, and who knows what they've had going on in their life, and they're coming to cut up. And there's a saying of, you can't lead people where you're not going. And so how do I expect the crowd to have a good time if I'm just sitting there just not moving. And so I always have that in the back of my mind when preparing for a show. And then another thing too, I used to be super shy, like used to close my eyes and still do a little bit, but more intentional than I used to. And I don't know if you notice this, but I try to make eye contact. I try to
Yeah.
work the
Yeah.
room, and that only came from taking vocal lessons and my vocal coach saying, well, if you're struggling looking at people in the crowd, you should sing directly into the mirror and try to look at yourself. And so I'll practice in front of a mirror, and I still struggle with it sometimes. But if you can, it's so like looking at yourself in the mirror is the most vulnerable thing you can do because it's you can't hide from anything.
Yeah.
And so I practice looking into a mirror, and I even like look at when I'm practicing. I imagine that a baseboard is someone. I imagine so that when I get on stage, it's not foreign to me, and I'm on stage and I've already looked at that person in the eyes. Like yes, it's a different person, but I've practiced that they were going to be there, and I've practiced that they were going to be there, and then I work the room that way. So those are two things that I would say with my live show, and then also trying to keep my breath like regulated because it's such an overstimulating
Yeah.
experience, and you can go into fight or flight mode when you're about to go on stage. Your mind is always looking for something to protect you from, and that feeling of the oh my gosh, of trying to control my breathing and really walk onto the stage in like a you know,
Yeah.
peaceful way. And even a walk-up song helps with that. I think we walked up to like Post Malone and Joe Diffie Pickup Man this year on tour, but it's my moment to be like, okay, this is my stage for this moment. Not it was really the Castello stage,
Yeah.
but for this moment, it's my stage. I'm gonna settle in. Okay, the song's the same, everything's the same, different town, but here we go, kind of thing.
I love it. And I love that you think so much about that because we didn't feel it. We were just like, this show is awesome. So I'm glad that to let you know that all that thought is paying off.
Well, thank you.
But I also feel like to switch gears here a little bit, collaborations have been the name of the game, I feel like for the past, I don't know, 2 years
Oh
maybe.
yeah.
And is there someone or some people that are still on your bucket list to collaborate with that you think would just, I mean, be the icing on the cake?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's ones that are like maybe near impossible collaborations, but I mean, definitely there's some in my mind that come to mind for this next project, even. And I don't know if I want to spill any beans or anything. I mean, I haven't even asked them yet, but
Yeah.
I did write a song with Josh Abbott about a year ago,
I love him.
and there's a song that's pretty special that I might shoot him a text and say, hey man, you wanna sing on this one? But even bigger than that, I think, I would love to collaborate with people outside of the genre. I think that'd be super cool. Um, I mean, some that come to mind. I'm a huge Justin Bieber fan.
Oh,
I'm a huge Post Malone fan. I mean, I listen to uh, all different types of music.
yeah.
I think it'd be cool to do something totally outlandish, like just outside of the genre of country music.
No,
Um,
I
have you heard
love
of Jack Blocker before?
No, I haven't. I'm
Okay, Jack
always down
Blocker,
for new
yeah,
music, so please
Jack
inform
Blocker
me.
is on American Idol like currently.
Okay.
He and performed last night, and he is killing it. He's a good friend of mine, and he is very non like traditional country music, more of that indie kind of Americana. But could see a collaboration with him in the future. But yeah, I mean, I'm always down. I mean, even the collaboration that I have with Cleto it
Yeah.
was so eye-opening. Like, I don't think the album would have been the same had I not collaborated with him because we got to track the vocals simultaneously. So when you listen to that, we're standing across from each other, like in the pretty much like only a piece of glass separating us. And seeing like my role model and someone hero of songwriting that's done it for 10 years step in there, and he had sunglasses on, he was acting goofy and just so relaxed. And I'm a very like uptight, like I'm a perfectionist, and it kind of broke down some walls and kind of opened my eyes to how it's supposed to look to track vocals. And we ended up going back in the studio and retracking like 5 or 6 after that moment because I had taken myself too seriously on the first half of doing vocals for Good Again Amen. So I think, in the future, I'd love to collaborate with different artists, even outside the genre, like I was saying, because they probably know so much more. And also I'll glean a little bit of something from them, from working with them.
I love it. So to wrap things up here, let's talk goals for this year. What is one, okay, or two things that you would love to check off your bucket list, before the year ends?
I want to sell out a show, a Keller Cox
Okay.
show. I think that'd be a fun thing to do. Walk on stage to a sold out show. And then another thing I want to check off my bucket list. Golly, I want to meet Willie Nelson.
That's a wonderful goal.
Yeah, he went to high school with my grandfather, and my
Oh,
grandfather passed away last year. And I think he has stories that I don't know,
yeah,
and they were friends in high school and middle school, growing up in Abbott, Texas. It's gonna happen. Just
yeah.
you heard it here first. I don't know when or how, but I think by the end of this year I will have met Willie at some point. I don't know. I'm just whether it's driving to a show and just making it happen or the connections. I just want to hear, and I don't want to meet like it sounds weird. I don't want to meet Willie Nelson to say I met Willie Nelson. I literally just want to meet him to be like, hey, what do you know about Bobby Cox or Bob Cox? But he was Bobby in high school. I think it'd be a very special moment. So yeah,
Oh.
sell out a show and meet Willie Nelson.
Well, I'm a huge manifester, so both of them are gonna happen, and when they do happen, I will be sure to reach out to you. I've only ever met a Willie Nelson impersonator at a Willie Nelson show, and he looked enough like Willie Nelson when I posted it to my social media that people actually thought it was
There
Willie.
you go. There you go.
I'll have to send you the picture because the guy's actually in a back brace and looks nothing like Willie Nelson,
Yeah,
but
please do. Please do. But yeah, those are two. I mean, there's a lot of goals, but I think those are two that are very attainable for this year. And
yeah.
yeah, and just to keep growing too. I think, we're gonna start taking some risk in Texas and start headlining some shows. And I've got a single at Texas radio. I don't know if you knew that. There's a Texas radio. There's national radio, but then there's Texas radio. And so you can send songs to that radio station and they'll chart and you can get a number one in Texas and the surrounding regions. Um, yeah, Texas is like its own little country down here. So we sent a song to Texas radio, and it's Damn Good Friends, and it's
Yeah.
slowly climbing the charts, and that'll help start selling tickets down here in this region. So
Yeah. Well, if you ever have a show in Dallas, Fort Worth, Salina, McKinney, we will be there because that's where my family is. So
okay,
that would be great.
well, I'm playing tonight in north of Dallas.
Oh, great.
Yeah, with Josh Abbott band on a Tuesday night. It's
Oh,
at some burger joint or something. So, but yeah, I got a couple shows in Dallas. We'll have to get contact information so we can
yeah, that
figure it
would be
out.
great.
But
That would be great. So, and yeah, I've met Josh a couple of times. When we have longer and aren't being recorded, I'll let you know how I actually met Josh. It's quite
there
the
you go.
story.
It usually is with the music scene. It's usually like 2 in the morning or something. Or
Yeah, something
so. Well,
chaotic.
this has
So
been such a
yeah,
joy.
thank you so much for taking the time, and I'll be in touch with Elizabeth about when this is gonna go out. It's gonna be probably mid-May, but we do a whole, like, marketing play around it, so we'll make sure we get updated pictures of you and stuff to
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been so fun getting to know you. And
yeah, thank
that
you.
show, that Michigan show, was one of my favorite. I'm not lying to you,
Yeah,
but this is it was one of my favorites on the tour. Just because that crowd was so, every crowd has its own kind of, from
ethos,
our
yeah.
perspective, that you could say like one word, like they were inquisitive or they were curious, and like every crowd has its own kind of overarching theme, and that was one of my favorites because it was just there was that one guy in the crowd that kind of like,
Yeah.
what's your name, that
Yeah.
moment or whatever. And that as a performer, I was like, it's game over, dude. I
We
was
are
like, well,
ready to
what's your
go. We
what's
are
your
ready to
name?
go.
I was like, what's your name?
Yeah.
And that kind of breaks that barrier down, and from
Yeah.
that moment forward, it was one of my favorites. So
I love it. I love it.
uh,
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Have fun with Josh tonight, and I'm sure we'll see you soon.
yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Talk to you
Thanks.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to